you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Motivation is not just about pep talks, it's not just about prizes. I think the best leaders know how to tap into all different types of motivation for themselves and for their team. And that motivation may be internal, it may be external, it may be social. And then these leaders know how to build different, call it contests or sprints to create and sustain momentum. Today, I want to talk through how to do just that, how to design or create competition that doesn't burn out, that doesn't fall apart, keeps your team going, even when the newness of it, the excitement fades. So let's start first by breaking down the different types of motivation. Okay. I think there's really three core types of motivation. First, there is extrinsic motivation. I'm sure you've heard the term extrinsic motivation. What is it? It's motivation that's driven by external outcomes. Maybe that's cash or bonuses or a trophy or gift cards. It's something that's motivated outside of the internal. Now, this type of motivation, this extrinsic motivation, it's actually really good for kickstarting action. You would use it maybe in a contest. It would show up as tangible prizes, or maybe it's weekly incentives, or maybe it's a daily objective and you win something, or maybe it's simply just visible progress on a leaderboard, a scoreboard, some sort of tracking, because that scoreboard gives you external recognition. So that's what extrinsic motivation looks like. The next type, though, is intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is motivation that comes from within. It's motivation that's about growth or personal pride, challenge, purpose. And this is good for sustained, high quality effort. Now, how do you use it in a sprint or in a contest? You frame the contest around growth and not just rewards. You maybe recognize effort publicly by saying something to the extent of, I see that you're leveling up. I see that you're improving your game. I think you could also tap into intrinsic motivation in a one-on-one setting when you're saying something to the effect of, hey, what would make you proud of yourself 60 days from now? The last type of motivation is social motivation. And social motivation is the drive to compete or belong or gain status in a group. And this really is good for fueling consistency. So this shows up with leaderboards. It shows up with team shoutouts, like recognition in a group meeting. It shows up with it when you pair people up as accountability partners, or even run team versus team sort of competitions, like internal competitions where there's brackets or whatever it may be. So when you take this intrinsic motivation, this extrinsic motivation, and social motivation, and you mix all three, you get an environment, a competitive one, maybe again, a contest or a sprint or whatever you may be running, but you get something that people want to show up for, even after it's a tough day. Now, I want to dive a little bit deeper into these motivation strategies because I think in our respective businesses, you're here at No Days Off, you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business. I think we aim to create these 30-day or 60-day or 90-day contests or sprints or whatever you want to call them in your world. In my world right now, we are running a 60-day contest, a challenge. And there's different motivation strategies I think you could deploy to get the most out of your team, out of your people. The first thing that comes to mind for me is creating milestones, weekly wins. Like break the goal, the 60-day goal, into smaller, more manageable chunks. And then you set up weekly targets. And what does that do? It creates more finish lines. And what does that do? It creates more opportunity for dopamine hits. So if you break the bigger goal into smaller, more manageable chunks, you can celebrate the completion of each week, if you break it down by weeks, and not just the total results. So you're creating milestones, you're creating weekly wins. That motivates many. Next, I've mentioned leaderboard a couple times. I think we need public scoreboards. I would update it, maybe daily at a minimum twice a week, and I'd make it visual. I'd make it shareable. I'd maybe use emojis or nicknames or fun commentary. For example, Rachel just passed John with a 3 listing week. She's heating up, like goofy things in terms of commentary. But the crux of this whole thing is the public scoreboard, right? The leaderboard. It's tapping into all those different types of motivation that I just described. The third motivational strategy I like in a, call it, 60-day contest is to what I would call inject midpoint novelty. What do I mean? What I mean is figure out ways to spice up the contest, especially in the middle when you're kind of hitting that kind of dip that goes, that happens all the time at the middle of any sort of challenge. Come up with some sort of flash challenge. All right, today, out of left field, you pull something. Today, first person to do X gets $50. First person to accomplish Y gets this gift card. Maybe you have a mystery envelope prize. Maybe you have a double credit day, or anything of that nature. Just some sort of contest within the contest, some sort of midpoint novelty that creates this excitement. Maybe creates a new spark, keeps people on their toes, and creates another opportunity to win. Number 4, when I'm thinking about motivational strategies, particularly in a contest, think about recognition over rewards. Bottom line, people like praise, appreciate praise, oftentimes far more than any sort of financial reward. Public praise, in my experience, is greater than private bonuses. So celebrate effort and resilience and attitude during meetings, or maybe in group chats or on calls. Maybe it's, hey, I want to give a shout out to Ben for showing up even on the days when it's hard. That's a real difference maker. That sort of public acknowledgement, that recognition, goes an incredibly long way. The last thing I would say around motivational strategies, particularly in a contest sort of environment, make sure you plan for the final push. The reality is the last 10 days or so are going to be grind. Turn the last 10 days into the playoffs. Remind your team what's on the line. Tell them stories of comebacks. Offer some sort of last leg prize or something along those lines for those that perform the best in the final stretch. So the 5 things I just ran through, creating milestones, running a leaderboard, injecting that midpoint novelty, recognition over rewards, and then lastly, plan the final push. Those are 5 motivational strategies that are on my mind as it pertains to, the contest I'm involved in, the challenge I'm involved in. But I want you to think about what's going on in your respective world, in your business. Number 1, if you're running any sort of challenge right now, can you deploy some of these strategies? Number 2, if you're not running any sort of contest, should you be? Is there an opportunity for you? I have one more bonus strategy I'm going to share, and that's the sharing of personal stakes bonus. I think it's powerful, and I think almost no one ever uses it. I want you to ask each team member privately, maybe right at the start of the contest or the challenge, why do you want to win this contest? What would this mean to you personally? So ask them all, why would you want to win this contest? Why do you want to meet this challenge? What would it mean to you personally? Then I'd encourage you to revisit it mid-contest or whenever they're down. Hey, you told me you wanted to take your daughter to Disneyland. Remember that? Let's keep pushing. That builds connection, it builds accountability, it deepens intrinsic motivation. People fight harder when it's personal. So that bonus strategy, create or share personal stakes and then bring it up midway through, I think it's a great opportunity. So these challenges, these contests, they don't have to fizzle out. When you build them around what really motivates people, and then you layer in structure and recognition and some fun, you can actually create something pretty powerful. So I want you to think around all that we discussed today. Figure out if maybe you need to even launch a contest or challenge or whatever it may be within your business, within your world. But if you're already running something, what here could you deploy immediately? And as a result, get more out of your team, more out of your people, and help them get to their goals. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.